wonderful and warm and very welcome to our virtual investor roadshow series here and by Swiss Resource Capital and Commodity TV. And we have today here Aztec Minerals with Simon Dyakowski, the CEO. Hey, good morning to Vancouver. How are you doing?
Hey, doing well, Jochen. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for taking the time. Before we start, we still have attendees who are checking in here. As usual, some hints from our side. Of course, my name is Jochen Steiger. I'm the founder and CEO of Swiss Resource Capital and also the chief editor and founder of Commodity TV and Rohstoff-TV. And it's my honor and pleasure to MC this session here with Simon Dyakowski. But before we start, as always, we are fully complying to European, Swiss, and also Great Britain laws, data security laws, and nobody can see each other and nobody sees the name or the email address. We want to have, of course, a lively discussion after this presentation, which should last about 20 to 25 minutes. And you can place your questions, please, into the chat function, and then I will moderate that with you. Yeah. Okay, super. Yeah, Simon, I would suggest that we get started. And I really love the title of your presentation, Elephant Hunting in North America. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are not here for a safari, but we are here for the elephants of silver and gold. That is for sure. And Simon, please give us an insight into your terrific company. I will set up the presentation for you.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction, Jochen. So Aztec Minerals Corp, as you can see on our title slide here, we're elephant hunters and we're focused in North America. Before I get too far into it, I'll just caution the viewers that I will be making some forward-looking statements, and our legal disclaimer can be found on our website and in our presentation on the second page. So an overview of Aztec Minerals. We're dual listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange Venture, TSX-V, under the symbol AZT. We also trade on the OTCQB in the US under the symbol AZZTF. And as mentioned, we're a mineral exploration company focused on the discovery of large polymetallic deposits in North America. The company is led by an experienced board and management with a proven track record of creating shareholder value through all aspects of the mineral exploration cycle, discovery, development, and production. We're focused on our elephant hunting in mining-friendly jurisdictions. We currently have 2 projects that reside within joint ventures. The first project is Tombstone. It's an epithermal gold, silver, as well as a CRD lead, zinc, silver, copper, gold project that's located in Southeast Arizona in the USA. And that's a 75-25 joint venture with the Tombstone partners. Aztec is the operator and we hold 75% of that joint venture. Our second project that I'll talk about today is the Cervantes porphyry gold copper project in Sonora, Mexico. This is a 65-35 joint venture with Kootenai Silver, and Aztec is the operator and the 65% owner of the joint venture. We've made a recent gold discovery at our Cervantes project in Mexico. It was a virgin discovery at Cervantes. Every single hole hit mineralization with a highlight hole of 160 meter width of 0.77 grams per ton gold. We have an attractive valuation with just under 57 million shares outstanding, at last traded at 30 cents a share for a market cap of $17 million. It's fairly closely held with 35% held in a tight group. The IPO was just about 4 years ago. We have multiple catalysts going forward to create value, including robust news flow from both projects. And we note that there's a new metals cycle underway since last year. So it's a good time to have a solid news flow going forward. And again, 2 targets at Tombstone. And at Cervantes, we're kicking off 2 phases of work this year, which I will discuss a little bit later on. Investor highlights. So investors might ask, why are we elephant hunting? So we're elephant hunting because the major mining companies, they need large ore deposits to sustain their businesses, their mining operations. And in recent decades, they've come to rely more and more on mergers and acquisitions. So buying assets from smaller companies rather than doing their own exploration to replace those reserves. So it's now come that junior explorations dominate the exploration sector, and within those junior exploration companies, you have the expertise to make the new discoveries. And once the discoveries are made, the major mining companies will pay large premiums to acquire the successful juniors and that process creates the maximum shareholder value for investors in the mining sector. Why are we focused in North America? So we're focused in North America because it's the best mining jurisdiction in the world. When you look at the combination of its political risk, which is low, rule of law, which is steady, a reasonable tax regime, it's got well-developed infrastructure, and it's got a lot of discovery potential still, even though it's had mining exploration for hundreds of years. Why should investors consider Aztec Minerals? Well, for 4 reasons. Firstly, being management. Management is key in these junior exploration companies, and our group has a proven track record in creating shareholder value, and I will highlight some of the accomplishments of our board and management later on in the presentation. An attractive valuation. Investors, should obviously invest in companies that have good prospects, that are valued well with good upside potential left. So we're a 17 million market cap with 35% closely held. That represents a very good upside for investors. We have 2 prospective projects in safe jurisdictions with a recent discovery and wide open potential for expansion at both projects. And why now? Well, the precious metal cycle is underway. Base metals have followed, and the majors are hungry for deals. There haven't been too many deals yet, and gold has been consolidating. But if you put it in the context of the last 5 or 6 years, gold is trading at an exceptionally good level, and the chart, in my opinion, looks pretty solid for long-term success in investing in gold and silver as a commodity. So just to show you exactly where our projects are located, you can see them both on the same map slide here. Tombstone is in southeastern Arizona. It's about 100 kilometers southeast of Tucson, and it's in the heart of a world-class porphyry copper district that many investors are familiar with. And it's 65 kilometers northeast of the massive Taylor CRD discovery. Investors might remember this from the Arizona mining takeover in 2018, where a discovery was made in 2015 by Arizona Mining, and just 3 years later, the stock was up 25 times and was purchased by South 32 Mining in an all-cash deal for $1.8 billion. So I'll touch on some similarities there later in the presentation, but we're very, very close to it. Moving on to Cervantes, the joint venture that we're in Sonora, Mexico. It's in eastern Sonora, and it's 160 kilometers east of Hermosillo, which is the regional mining center there in terms of cities. It's 60 kilometers west of Alamos Gold's famous Mulatos gold mine. It's 50 kilometers west of Agnico Eagle's La India gold mine, and it's about 45 kilometers north of Minera Alamos Santana project. So it's nestled in between some very well-known projects. It's in a very good location. I'll give you some highlights now on the Tombstone project. So again, it's a 75-25 joint venture of which we're the operator. It's a well-located property. It's on patented land, which means it's on private land in the US. It's got good road access. It's got great infrastructure. It's located just south of a historic mining town, and it has full services, including water and power, which are all intangible aspects to a mineral development and exploration project. We have all of those aspects checked off. It's a historic silver mining district that produced 32 million ounces of silver between 1878 and 1939, primarily from CRD deposits and high-grade oxidized silver, gold, lead, zinc, and copper veins. You can see the image on the right, top right-hand side of the screen there. That is a picture of some of the old workings at Tombstone. It was operating as an open pit mine even in the 1980s after that period of historic mining. Aztec, we've recently completed a phase 1 RC program that was 21 holes and just shy of 3,000 meters. So we completed that from August through to November of 2020, just last year. And it was a successful program. It intersected extensive gold and silver mineralization along 830 meters of north trending strike at the contention structure. So up and down that pit that we're looking at. We note that there are lots of underground workings around this contention structure. They were mined where old-time miners mined high-grade, very high-grade gold and silver veins in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And as I mentioned, the contention open pit mined epithermal shallow gold and silver mineralization in a heap leach operation throughout the 1980s into the late 80s. And we have multiple prospective targets across the property in different geological formations. Just to show you a geological map here. So If you squint, you might be able to see some red mine symbols. So those are the historic mines, and you can see there's numerous mines underlying our property right in the middle of this in the page there. And you can see that we're situated just south of this historic mining town of Tombstone, which is, I note, it's a very mining friendly town. A lot of the local jobs there are derived from the historic mining industry. There's museums and different tours that tourists can take, and it's very mining friendly. And our big Taylor type deposit, which is underneath the pit, lies to the south of the property, which I will show in a subsequent slide. So to give you some highlights of our drilling last year, which we expect to follow up on shortly, 19 out of the 21 holes that we drilled were located in 3 areas. We call them the north, center, and south drill spoke patterns. And all 3 of these patterns intersected widespread gold and silver mineralization. And it extended the mineralized zone that we're looking at to 830 meters north-south and down to 100 meters depth below the contention open pit. You can see how our drill rig was set up there at the bottom of the pit. So really encouraging for us. And the proof of concept that we were investigating was if the old time miners in those small underground mines had left over mineralization that would be mineable in today's prices and with today's methods. So to that end, we intersected many old mine workings dating back to the late 1800s. And although it seems like most of the high grade bonanza grade type mineralization was previously mined, there was substantial lower grade mineralization left behind. And I'll touch on why that's important in a minute here. Just to give you some drill hole highlights, we call it lower grade mineralization that we were drilling, but in fact, by today's standards, we hit some pretty impressive grades. Hole 9, you can see here, 15 meters of over 6 grams of gold and over 77 grams of silver. When you look at it on a silver or on a gold equivalent basis, it averaged to over 7 grams of gold equivalent. And this is from a shallow depth from 32 meters down the hole. And in hole 2, we can see here in the bulk tonnage gold silver highlights, hole 2 returned 77.7 meters of 0.94 grams per ton gold and 42 grams silver, or 1.6 grams of silver, gold equivalent, starting from just 20 meters down the hole. So an exceptional bulk tonnage hit there. And Jochen was highlighting the 13 meter section of over 3 grams of gold and 136 grams of silver within that hole. So, really, really good thick mineralized intervals of both high grade and then broader bulk tonnage mineralization. So extremely encouraging for us, and drilling that we're going to be following up on shortly here with further drilling. So this is a map showing the setup of the drill holes. If you squint your eyes, it's probably a little bit small, but you can see that the red dots are where we drilled last year. And they're mainly around the north, center, and south of that pit along that north-south line. And then you can see our drill program plan for this year is going to be more on a kind of a grid pattern that's going to be represented by the black dots there. And those are each between 50 and 100 meters spaced apart, and they all have multiple holes coming off them. So it's more of an infill drill program that we're going to be doing this year that's going to be testing in between those zones where we encountered that widespread mineralization. You can see here, this is a projection of what we drilled last year on the long section, and you can see that between that north, center, and south spoke, there was a lot of area open for drilling. So many of the holes that we plan to drill in our upcoming 10,000 foot or 3,000 meter program will be within those 3 circles, and you can easily see how there's potential to expand the mineralization stepping down and in between the previous drilling. So this could amount to a substantial gold and silver resource when all the drilling is said and done. So it's an exciting next step that we'll be taking over the next few months. This is just a long section here that shows some of the holes in the middle of the spoke pattern. So you can see that mineralization is very consistent with both gold and silver up and down the holes. So the key takeaways from the shallow bulk tonnage targets, I'll just remind investors that there's really 2 targets at Tombstone. The shallow gold silver target is the one that we were drilling last year and will continue to drill this spring. That's the shallow gold silver bulk tonnage in and around the old mines. And then we have a much deeper silver lead zinc target that we'll be targeting later this year. But the key takeaways from what we've already done is that the drilling has confirmed extensive shallow oxidized gold and silver mineralization in a historic heap leach open pit. So we would really want to highlight this fact as first bullet point. So the typical open pit heap leach mines in the areas of Sonora, Arizona, and Nevada, they run about 0.4 to 0.6 grams per ton gold. The grades that we encountered in our phase 1 drill program are high grade in comparison, sometimes 2 or 3 times that grade. So we're in great shape with what we've been seeing. The contention open pit heap leach mine, it already operated in the 1980s, and they made money at much lower precious metal prices. And we have some old reports that indicate that there was solid recoveries of at least 75% gold and 60% silver with just minor crushing. So it bodes very well for us to continue investigating the potential for bulk tonnage resource at the contention mine and open pit on the Tombstone property. And we talked a lot about the lower grade bulk tonnage intervals that we drilled, but we've sampled some much higher grade material as well. We haven't drilled it yet specifically, but some grab samples have been very high grade at 23.5 grams of gold and over 3,000 grams of silver. So there's potential to intersect those with further drilling, grades like that. So in sum, the phase 1 drilling program has verified the bulk tonnage gold silver mineralization along that plus 800 meters of strike length and down to 100 meters at the contention pit. And it's still open for expansion. And that's given us the confidence to plan to commence a phase 2 program this year in about a month that's going to infill the phase 1 patterns, as well as to step out and step down to expand that shallow, broad bulk tonnage gold silver zone that was discovered around and below the pit by us last year. I'll touch now on our secondary target at Tombstone, which is the CRD potential. And this is buried deep below the open pit. And I just show you this map here to show you how close we are to that famous Hermosa-Taylor CRD discovery from 2015, which is now a 100 million ton deposit at 10% zinc equivalent, one of the largest zinc deposits in the world, and was purchased by the big Australian company South32 for $1.8 billion in cash just about 2.5 years ago. So that discovery was made under the Hermosa Silver District, and Tombstone is the next closest past produced or historic silver district with similar geology. So we thought, hey, why don't we explore that theory for deeper drilling at Tombstone? The geology makes sense to do that, but we're not just doing it blind off geology. We have some historic drill data from around our property done by Santa Fe Mining in the late 1980s. And one hole they drilled to the north of our property returned a 7-meter interval of a combined over 9% lead zinc, 0.61% copper, and about an ounce of silver with some minor gold. So that's a very good head start for us in that hole T8 on the bottom of the table. And that's what gives us the confidence to go and drill deeper later this year once we're finished with our shallow RC drilling. I'll show you now. I'm personally not a geologist, but investors can see some of our targets here without getting too deep into the geology. You can see that we've run a geophysical survey at a deep depth below the pit, and it's lit up some what look to be conductive anomalies just south of where that hole T8 was. So we've got some very compelling targets with some evidence of CRD, massive sulfide type mineralization that we're very, very anxious to start drilling once we've completed our shallow drilling program. And here's a slice into the a cross-section slice of one of the geophysical surveys that we did, which shows a big bullseye target below the open pit at about a 600 meter below surface level. So we plan to drill that later this year, and it represents another unique target and aspect to this project, which, warning promotional slide here, but if it hits, this is what can happen with a CRD discovery in Arizona. And that's the share price chart of Arizona mining from 2015 to 2018, where investors made 25 times their money from the initial discovery to the ultimate takeout. So it's a very, very high reward type target that we can't wait to start drilling when the time is right. So our next steps, as mentioned, our phase 2 RC infill drill program expected to commence within the next month. It's 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters and about 20 holes. And that's going to infill up and down that fantastic mineralization that we encountered last year. And then later this year, our phase 3 core drilling program, that's to target those deeper CRD targets identified by our geophysical AMT survey and with examination in conjunction with historic drill data and regional geology that we've been studying for several years. So that's a big upside in that target. We have another project, which is even bigger, and this is our 6535 venture in Sonora, Mexico. This is one that we've recently started a phase 1 program on. We've made a discovery on this project back in 2018, a big gold discovery, but it's really a large project that needs a lot more drilling and exploration and has multiple targets. So just to touch on the highlights, it's a large project. It's also on private land, which is key for any potential mining operation. 3,600 hectares with good road access, private surface land, water wells on site, multiple zones along a porphyry corridor that runs for about 6 kilometers. And we have very strong geochemical soil anomalies indicating gold-bearing zones in many portions of the project, highlighted by the California target, which is about a kilometer-long target by 600 meters that has elevated gold in soil that we drilled. And we have multiple targets generated by geophysics, extensive gold sampling all along the project. And already we've had very compelling drill results that were drilled in, a somewhat less enthusiastic drill market, gold market a few years ago in 2018. But 160 meters of 0.77 grams per ton gold in a heap leach oxide type setting, and another intersection of 140 meters, nearly of 0.71 grams gold. Mineralization still open. And we've already done some metallurgical test work with excellent gold leach recoveries between 75 to 87%. The California target, where those fantastic drill results came from, it's still wide open laterally and to depth. And we have IP anomalies that strengthen at depth, indicating the potential for sulfide mineralization below that oxide cap. And those have yet to be tested. Just to show you here quickly on the geological map, some of those circles represent the targets that we have. And again, only one of them has been drill tested, and that will change fairly shortly. I mentioned that geophysical anomaly. I won't get too much into the geology here, but you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's no red at the 100-meter depth slice, and that's where we drilled the gold oxide cap, which looks to be a cap to a gold copper porphyry system. And then sliding over to the right-hand side of the screen at the 500-meter level, you can see that legibility really kicks up. That could be due to sulfide mineralization. Again, we don't know. We need to drill to find out, but that is consistent with the geological theory for those kind of deposits. Won't bore you with too much of the geophysics, but here you can see some of the plan map of the drilling that we did over 2017 and 2018, where we hit that extensive gold mineralization over wide widths. And you can see that that kind of red hashed circle or outline around the zone has a lot of drilling potential to expand it in all directions. So I'll talk a little bit more about our plans in a minute here, but that represents some very, very exciting news for investors coming up over the rest of the year. Highlights of the drilling to date, as I mentioned, 160 meters of 0.77, 139 of 0.71, 170.42, 122.6. I mean, these are all excellent heap leach grades for that area. There's numerous mines operating, making a lot of money in Arizona, Sonora, Mexico, Nevada, and the like with those kind of grades. So it was a huge discovery for us. And for investors just coming into the story, we haven't followed up on it yet. That's our plan for this year. So it's really early for this project, even though we've already got a great running head start. So our next steps there. So about 6 weeks ago, we announced our phase 1 program in the joint venture, which was to get back on the ground at Cervantes after a couple of years of not having been there. And we're just about wrapped up that program. We've got geologists on the site right now. And what they're doing is they're doing some soil sampling, generating some more targets, finishing up some mapping, and generally preparing for a drill program that we have planned for later this year. And we announced in a press release in January what the plans for our drill program are for later this year. So again, this is key information for investors. No, there hasn't been any drilling for virtually 3 years, and we're going to be going back in there, subject to financing, I'll add, but we'll be going back there in a big way. We've planned 5,000 meters, 2,800 of those meters, so about 14 200-meter drill holes, are planned to infill that California target where we saw those spectacular heap leach grades in that wide open oxide cap. We're going to be drilling 2 deep holes to 500 meters into those sulfide targets that we looked at, those deeper 500-meter targets a couple slides back. And then we have approximately 6 holes budgeted for other targets around some of those other circles that we looked at on that map. So Purísima is a big target that we'll be drilling, and as well as California North, and gaining a lot of information on next steps to advance the project beyond that. So it's a combination of exploration drilling, deeper drilling, and infill drilling. So it's really a comprehensive program, and that is expected to kick off August, September of this year after the rainy season, and will take us through the end of the year with some really exciting news flow. Again, subject to financing, but we're really pleased to be able to be working on this again in a much stronger gold pricing environment. So just again, to summarize those catalysts, we have plenty of them coming up in the next 3 months and beyond, but through the end of March into June, we're going to start that phase 2 program, 20 plus holes in the shallow epithermal gold silver mineralization at Tombstone, up and down that pit. Cervantes, we're finishing that phase 1 program, which is really legwork for drilling later this fall and summer. Cervantes, again, once we have the results of that phase 1 mapping and sampling program, we're going to review that to fine-tune our targets for drilling later this year. And then looking through June to December, which really isn't that far away now, we're almost at April, we're going to plan and commence that phase 3 core drilling program targeting the CRDs at Tombstone, subject to financing. And at Cervantes, we will be commencing that 5,000-meter RC drill program at the California and Purísima and deep targets as well. So really a lot of news flow. It's great that Jochen, that we're chatting today, because we haven't had a whole lot in the last 2 months, but that's going to change very quickly here. Capital structure, always important for a junior company. So again, listed on the TSX-V, great liquidity. It's the premier exploration exchange in the world, I think. And the OTCQB, which we actually trade a fair amount of volume on down in the States. And it's helpful that we have a US project. So a lot of American investors are familiar with the Tombstone mining district. So that's a bonus for us. It's a good capital structure for projects we're already at. There's just shy of 57 million shares outstanding. Fully diluted, it's just shy of 73. Insiders hold about 15% of the company right now. We've got about 1.7 million in cash, so our upcoming work at Tombstone is fully funded, and our market cap is it's a tiny $17 million. So we're very undervalued for even in a consolidating gold market. We are undervalued compared to our peers, and especially undervalued when you consider the news flow that's upcoming. So hopefully that changes for us relatively quickly, but all the pieces of the puzzle are in place, which we'll be assembling over the next few weeks and months here. And again, last but not least, this is probably the most important part of a junior exploration company. Is, I mean, great projects are one thing, but you need management and a board to support the development and identification and financing of those projects. So we have, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we've got really a blue chip board led by Brad Cook, who many are familiar with. He is our chairman. He's our qualified person. He is the founder, largest shareholder of our company. His day job is running Endeavour Silver, and he's also the founder of Canagold Resources. He's over 40 years of experience in the mining industry, multiple discoveries and mine developments to his credit. So he leads the charge from the board level as the founder and the chairman. Strong technical team as well. Rounding out the board of directors, some notable mining professionals that investors will be familiar with. Mark Rebliati, he's a renowned geologist. He's credited with managing several major porphyry discoveries for the Hunter Dickinson Group, and he's a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Pat Veris, founder and chairman of Western Potash, Boreal Metals, more than 30 years experience, and he's associated with several very, very large takeovers in the mining industry. So, three notables there. Very, very strong pedigree on the board, and they'll be key in helping Aztec advance the story. So why Aztec? Experienced management and board who have an indisputable track record of making discoveries, operating mines, and selling companies. So the three ways to make money as a mineral investor, the board and management have done before. An attractive valuation, just 17 million Canadian dollar market cap, so lots of upside, and a good tight share structure. 2 prospective projects located in mining friendly jurisdictions with located on private land, good infrastructure, so no red flags on any aspect of the project there. We've made a recent discovery of bulk tonnage gold silver at the Tombstone property around that open pit, wide open for expansion. And then a much larger project in Sonora, Mexico, which we already made a discovery on as well, and we'll be following up on in a few short months. And then back to Tombstone, we've got that prospective CRD target that has the Taylor discovery model attached to it that we will be following up on later this year as well. So that concludes my presentation on Aztec. There's my contact information. If anybody wants to follow up after the Q&A, I'm happy to take questions anytime by email, phone, whatever. So give me a call.
Super. Hey, thank you very much, Simon. I'm putting you back here, and so let's have a look here with the chat function. All right. Are you a takeover target for Endeavour Silver, as Bradford Cook is the chairman?
I don't know about that. I don't think so. I can't really answer that. You'd have to ask Brad.
Okay, I will do that. I have to talk to him tomorrow anyhow. No, good. Then let's get started with some questions here. Okay, where do you see the main focus, let's say, for this year? Is it more on Tombstone or is it more on Cervantes? Where do you allocate more dollars? Oh,
well, actually, it's kind of a trick question. It's almost equal. I think Tombstone might be a larger budget, but in terms of meterage, they're both equal. It's about 5,000 meters of both projects. So 5,000 meters of RC at Cervantes, and then 3,000 meters of RC at Tombstone, and 2,000 meters of core. So it's split. It's we'll be fairly active on both projects, and potentially at the same time later this year. So there's going to be a lot going on.
Okay, so let's stick for a second in the USA with Tombstone, and it looks to me a little bit like that. Yeah, your focus is to repeat the success FAUS 32 made. Like, is that a bit with the CRD style and all those kind of things? Is that a bit, let's say, the objective for you?
Well, it's certainly a possibility, right? It's an objective. I don't know if it's the main objective at Tombstone. I mean, first up, we want to build value in that shallow mineralization because we know that's there and it's wide open for expansion. So that's it's relatively low cost to go in and explore that and work towards proving up a modest resource of gold and silver heap leachable. But certainly you can't leave that giant CRD target untested. So I mean, if that works out for us, it's a total game changer. But even if it doesn't, we've got pretty solid upside on that contention open pit, which it's right there. It's a mine that is only partially mined in the 80s. So hopefully that answers that question.
Absolutely. Now, the question would for me also, before we come then to the contention pit, is how many meters do you think you have to drill to find something really, let's say, substantial, and how much money do you think you need for the CRD style?
So sorry, was the question related to only the CRDs or to the contention?
Yes, no, it's only CRD by now.
So we have approximately it's about 1,800 meters to 2,000 meters planned. So it's 3 holes. One of them is going to twin that hole that returned the 7 meters of semi-massive sulfides that I mentioned, that hole T8 that was drilled by Santa Fe Mining. That's in the north of the property. And then we have 2 targets that haven't been drilled at all south of that. So, those 3 will give us a pretty good look to see what we need to do next. But that's how we'll start. Yeah.
Okay, super. Then let's come to the contention pit. I mean, it's always great to work in an old pit, that is for sure. And as you said, in the 1980s, there was mining, also historic mining, so with much, much lower gold and silver prices. So could we say that maybe there's also a question about the exit strategy? Is it maybe a plan to say, okay, you know what, let's have a look on the surface inside the pit. Maybe we can mine this pit in an open pit phase first, and then we can go underground. Would that be a scenario?
It might be a scenario for somebody. Our focus is to be a mining company. We're an exploration company. We think that our investors will make the most money by spending dollars wisely on exploring and adding value by defining, potentially resources and then marketing the assets. So, I don't think Aztec is, our goal is not to become a mining company. It's to prove out resources, to make discoveries, and to get that maximum value that you see in the mining sector, through those exits. So, that's how I'd answer that. But, I can't really speak to. It's a little bit early, I guess, to talk about how you'd attack those 2 unique targets. But I think the key for investors is there's a lot of valuable metal potentially in both targets. And that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, super. I like the fact that you say already, okay, we want to monetize that thing. It's not our target to really go in production. I think it's always good to have a clear plan. Here really referring to the exit strategy question here. I think this is a clear path forward. That is also for sure. What do you think majors want to see, or let's say mid-sized producers? What do you have to prove up, let's say in a resource or in a size of a deposit, that they really get interested here?
Well, I think for the shallow mineralization, just given that it's got these intangibles, you can't really compare all. I mean, obviously you can't compare all projects to each other just on a flat scale. If you're on private land in a mining friendly state in Arizona or Nevada, for example, or Sonora in Mexico, you potentially get a much higher value for a smaller heap leach gold deposit, because there are many of those in operation throughout the state. And, as we get through this precious metal cycle, there's a real possibility that some groups might want to look into consolidating, 500,000 ounce gold deposits to gain some economies of scale, or to get to a larger cash flow multiple and take the step as a bigger mining company. So, the shallow potential at Tombstone could put us into that range. I mean, I don't want to speculate on any tonnage right now. It's way too early. But just, given the dimensions of the pit, we could definitely see that being of interest to a group that's, looking to become a heap leach gold substantial operator in the southwestern U.S. And there's a company that's recently been spun off of Gold Resource Corporation, Fortitude Gold. They traded about 100 million market cap U.S. and they're mining, I think it's like a 250,000 ounce deposit in Nevada. So, I wouldn't get too focused on, a project in that part of the world being too small, because the mineability and cash flow characteristics of these projects can be quite compelling, even if they are small. We're not in the middle of nowhere drilling a big porphyry that might cost billions of dollars to construct. It's heap leach is low cost, extremely low capex gold production. So that's, I think that's really key for why we're actually drilling this contention open pit. It's, I think it's a very reasonable strategy. And then for the deep targets, what would a major need to see? That's a good question. I mean, it's very high grade mineralization. So, you wouldn't necessarily need 100 million tons like a world-class deposit like Arizona mining. I mean, that's a good target model for us given the geology. But, I'd say, 5 to 10 million tons could even be a very compelling base metal deposit in that kind of geology. But we haven't even drilled that target, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But suffice it to say, it's you don't need to have massive deposits when you're in that kind of a setting.
Okay, so then I got here some new questions. We have a French investor who is asking, is it wise to spread the available funds over several projects rather than one and make that available for advancement or interest for a takeover? You are not a group that brings a project in operation, but have your talents in prospect and project development.
Yeah, so it's a good question. The budgets that we're putting to work here, they're not huge. It's relatively, well, RC drilling in a town in southern Arizona, it's one of the cheapest exploration costs that you're going to find anywhere in the world. So, and again, we have 3 targets really on 2 projects, 2 primary targets. So I don't think we're spread too thin in that sense. And we have, we plan to schedule the work to happen independently. So this RC program at Tombstone, you saw the grades that we drilled last year. You just cannot follow up on that. So that's it's fairly low cost. I think our budget for that to the joint venture is just over 600,000 Canadian, of which we're 75%. So that's it's $500,000 Canadian to infill drill a very prospective past producing pit. That's that's not a huge investment. And then conversely, or not conversely, but additionally at Cervantes, our total budget for the year there in our joint venture, of which we're 65, is just over $1 million Canadian, and we're going to get over 5,000 meters of drilling with that. So I don't think we're spread too thin. If anything, we're spending less money than other groups would, but we want to make sure that we can keep that capital structure intact, so that when we have the news flow and the information coming in about how big these deposits might be and how many ounces, for example, there might be of heap leachable gold at both, and whatever else comes of it, we don't have 500 million shares out, right? So people will make money still.
Okay, super. Then 2 questions from a Swiss investor out of Zug. Are you actively searching for additional projects? And the second question is also related to the projects. Do you have any plans to take them over by 100%?
So to answer the first question, so we are an exploration company, so we're always looking at opportunities. That's part of our jobs, and we've got a great group, as we discussed, that have knowledge all around the world and in those safe jurisdictions that we're focused in. So we're always looking. But that said, our main focus, 90% of our focus right now is on those 2 projects. So we're not saying we're not going to add anything ever, but it's not a burning priority right now. What was the second question?
Second question is, do you have any plans to take over 100% in your project?
Well, no. Right now, we're working with our partners who are very happy to be working with us. So we just formed these joint ventures with Kootenay and with the Tombstone partners. So yeah, we're working with them, and we've got a good working relationship with both. And it's we look forward to advancing both projects as they stand right now.
Okay, super. Then again, 2 questions. What is today cash on hand? If you can answer that already. We saw 1.7 million in the presentation. And how many meters can you drill before you need to raise some more cash?
Okay, yeah. So that 1.7 million, that's not as of today. It's as of yesterday. So okay. I asked, I wanted to have accurate information for you, so we got that report yesterday. So we have 1.7. And we don't want to run the treasury to zero. So we as I mentioned, we have about $600,000 to spend at Tombstone on the RC drilling. But that's about or it's 75% of that is us. So $500,000. So we'll still have $1 million in the treasury when we're done that program. So we have ample treasury to complete that program and to see where we're at once we're done. So yeah, I'll answer it that way. Yeah.
How many meters more do you think you have to drill until you can do your, let's say, initial resource?
I don't think we're going to get there on this round of drilling, but it's going to give us an idea of how much more we need. So probably not too much more after this 3,000 meters of drilling, But again, we still need a little bit more information just to see, where to construct some additional drill pad locations and what spacing we might need to calculate that resource. So we're getting close. It's not tens of thousands of more meters, but we'll have a much better answer for you maybe the next time we talk on that. Yeah.
Okay, super. Then there is a question from a German shareholder. Is Mexico really a good jurisdiction, as we saw a couple of tax problems come with companies had in the last months, including First Majestic Silver, for example?
It's I'd say it's still a very good jurisdiction. I mean, if you stack Mexico up against the world, I think you'd still rank it as one of the top. I mean, especially Sonora, Mexico, where we're located. It's we're in a region of Mexico that's dominated by two industries: ranching and mining. So like Hermosillo, for example, is kind of the regional mining center in the area. And there's very good support for mining in Sonora. So we're not worried about Mexico, and we're not worried about Arizona either, for that matter.
Okay, super. Then a question to your shareholder structure. You said 15% are insiders. I assume this is completely management, yeah? If you can tell us maybe what's your personal share in the company, and who are the guys of the 20% which are closely holding that, and what is held from the rest? Do you have any institutions in, for example?
Yeah, so the 15% is the management and the board, so that includes Brad. I think he has about 8%. I think I've got about 1.8 million shares if you include options and warrants. So I've got a good position. And in terms of the closely held group, it's primarily investors that have supported the deal. From the IPO through today that have come in, many in Europe. In terms of institutions, no big notable ones yet. So that's good for retail shareholders to get in before they do. But I think we're a little bit early, or we have been a little bit early. They typically they like resources, right, over pure drill speculation. But hopefully, as you can see from the presentation, that we'll be along that path to resource estimation relatively soon here. And that's typically the time when larger investors come in, and they sometimes come in with less discrimination than retail guys. They buy furiously when they see the valuation gap. So hopefully that answers that. There's nobody notable in there just yet, but I expect that to change shortly.
Super. As we were just talking about the cash, there came one more question on the cash up. What is the annual G&A? So when do you think you really have to raise cash again? Looks like he wants to step into it.
Yeah, I mean, I would so the G&A is about 35,000 a month, I think. So $350, $400 a year. We don't want to run the treasury low. Okay, so we'll fund likely the next phases of drilling either through maybe a warrant exercise or a small financing, but there's nothing planned just yet. So I mean, the market's been a little bit soft for gold and silver, so luckily we haven't run out of money during this little period of sideways trading. So nothing imminent, unfortunately, if you're looking to get involved in the financing. Sorry.
Okay, super. No problem. That's fine. Those are all good questions, and they are really legalized here. Another question. Let's assume you would have the resource this year. It's really hypothetical. Okay. Yeah. Could we expect that you move maybe towards a PEA next year, or do you say no? We want to really stay away from production. We have focused really on drilling, hitting it as hard as we can, and prove as many ounces as possible, and then get a real high price to sell the whole thing. Yeah,
drilling and discovery, that's what we're doing. So that's our focus. We're I can't speak for years down the road, but for the next year, for the next year and a half, it's going to be largely entirely focused on drilling, discovering new mineralization, And again, I mean, it's Cervantes. If you look at the map, it's a huge project with so many targets. I mean, that's going to take, or I mean, it's got a lot of opportunity to continue to drill. And so, yeah, I think our work's cut out for us there.
Okay, super. As it looks like that you will have really a heavy news flow over the next, let's say, 6 to 9 months, meaning over most of the year. Do you think, as your market cap with 17 million, I think personally it's way too low. I'm a shareholder of your company, yeah, just also for disclosure reasons. And I see it also way too low. But what do you think has held back the stock price a bit to go more up? Do you think it's also the weakness in general gold and silver markets, or do you think it's also a bit the lack of news?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, gold, although from a historical perspective, it's very strong, over $1,700 an ounce, and looking at the cash cost production profiles of different heap leach gold projects in the region, it's I mean, there's potentially huge margins there. But yeah, I mean, you're fighting a bit of a consolidation. Like gold had this fantastic run from March through to August of last year when everybody was talking about gold and nobody was talking about anything else. And I think gold really led the inflation of all the other assets that we've seen now, the lithium and the copper and the lumber and all of these industrial commodities that have been on fire the last few months. But people got to remember that gold moved first. Right. And sure, it's consolidating now, but it led all of this monetary policy, currency debasement that we're seeing now. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I think gold's priming for another run higher. But yeah, our share price, it's definitely, we've been competing for attention with other speculations, right? Pure speculations. I mean, I don't call Aztec a speculation, but sometimes it attracts the same class of investors. So we've been fighting that a little bit. So that'll change. And then, yeah, a lot of it is that news flow. We haven't been drilling. I mean, we had this huge success last year, but our results came around Christmas time, and people might have had other priorities than watching for Aztec's drill results around then. And then, to be fair, we haven't started drilling yet. So there's been, almost 3 months now of kind of no drilling. So that's all going to change soon. And I think that's why we've drifted a little bit. But, we think that that'll change as we, one is this consolidation continues, and the chart looks like it's, almost there. And then again, yeah, the drilling news flow is really the magic here. So.
Fantastic. No, and I think that this is also a good time to do, because when you have the results, probably gold and silver really starts to move. Oh, then we have again the investor from Zug. He was just checking the insider filings and is asking why Brad was a seller in January.
I think he was exercising warrants. I think it was, yeah, Brad's he's the founder of the company. He's got more riding on this than anyone financially. So directors, they don't take fees on this company, and occasionally being longtime shareholders. I mean, we IPO'd in 2017, but the company's been around for 20 years. So sometimes they rebalance the warrants, and it shows up as a sale on the SETI insiders. But yeah, there's no director selling, for any fundamental reasons. It's only ever that.
Yeah, sometimes there's a real simple reason. You have to pay some taxes.
Yes, of course, yeah. Yeah.
This is really like it. I have also one more question as we are nearing us the hour. What do you think for Cervantes is needed that you get the attraction from Alamos or Agnico, as they are your neighbors, I would call it?
Yeah, I think that, I think they'd probably be watching closely what we do with the next round of drilling. I mean, infilling that California zone alone could represent a substantial heap leach gold resource just on that one target. Okay, so I think they're probably going to just watch that. And then we've got plans to drill many, many other targets, which could add to that story. But that California zone, that's key. That's the biggest target, and that's already had a discovery, and it's, like we showed, it's wide open for expansion.
Super. All right. So let me double check here that I did not miss somebody, just to make sure. Nope, that looks all good. Perfect. Also, my list is done. Yeah. Fantastic. Super. Hey, we made it through the hour. Thank you very much, Simon. That was great. And I think you are definitely heavily undervalued. And as I always say, it's much easier to make it from 17 million to 50 or to 100 million than from 1 billion to 2 billion market cap wise.
Totally.
That's also for sure. Super. Yeah. Thank you very much, Simon. We look forward to your upcoming news flow, of course. And I would say let the drills turning and hit that ground. We want to see ounces.
Yeah, so do we. And thanks for the time, and thanks for all the great questions today as well. It's good answering them.
Super. Thank you very much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was our virtual roadshow presentation by Swiss Resource and Commodity TV with Aztec Minerals and Simon Dyakowski, the CEO. And you heard it, the company looks really like heavily undervalued. They still have enough cash to do the next phase of drilling. That is also important. And we really hope for, again, very good results. This company has already shown fantastic results. And we think there will be quite some good news flow upcoming here. And as said, with $17 million, this is really on the lower side of the valuation, definitely also in those markets. And we look forward to some good news flow. And thanks, for really joining us today. All the best to you. Please stay healthy and hope to see you all soon. We will have next week Fury Gold Mines with Mike Timmons, and hope to see you all back here into this show. Thank you very much and all the best, and bye-bye from Switzerland.